Good morning, everyone. Welcome to what should be an exciting webinar with the Associated Colleges of Illinois and Parker Dewey. My name is Jeffrey Moss. Want to introduce first Mick Weltman, who you all know, who's the Executive Director of the Associated Colleges of Illinois, to kick us off. Mick?
Thanks, Jeffrey. Welcome, everyone, on this cold, crazy day today. We're so glad you could join us, and we're very excited to have as a colleague Jeffrey Moss and Parker Dewey. We've been working with them for, well, almost about, I think about a year now, and I think it's been a great collaboration, and we look to expand that. We truly want to expand it into more of our schools and more of the companies we're working with throughout Illinois. So we're excited to be here, and we're looking forward to the webinar. And thank you, ACI members, for joining us. Jeffrey?
Thanks, Mick. And again, thanks everyone for braving the cold to get wherever you've gotten to watch the webinar. Personally, I could not be any more excited about this relationship with ACI. Just as a quick aside, before we launched Parker Dewey 4 years ago, ACI and Mick were actually sort of some of the first folks we spoke with, and had built a relationship with Mick and Anna Carroll over at Dominican University, who really helped us craft all of this. So we have a huge appreciation for Mick and ACI and its entire network of colleges. So really excited to introduce this Reinvigorate Micro-Internship program that we're going to be kicking off here with ACI and its members, and share more about this program. So real quickly, the current situation, we have 27 members, as you all know, across the state, representing over 70,000 career launchers. We as members of the ACI are serving huge numbers of students, recent graduates, as we like to call them, career launchers, who come from underrepresented populations, diverse backgrounds, first-generation college students. And meanwhile, these are individuals who have the grit, the motivation, the drive to really thrive in the workforce, which is great. And what's also pretty wonderful is with all of the attacks on post-secondary education, whether it's tied to outcomes, student debt, et cetera, what's wonderful is ACI's network of colleges has really proven its ability to drive better academic outcomes more effectively, and really have prepared the students incredibly well for those careers. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that some of the largest companies in Illinois have pretty big numbers of ACI-affiliated employees. These are employees who are at companies like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Northern Trust, ADM, BMO, that represent ACI colleges. And again, I'm sure we're missing a bunch. Just this data is based upon self-reporting in LinkedIn. But there's a pretty great representation across the state and across some of the biggest companies. However, one of the things that's actually concerning is some of the largest campus recruiters and largest Illinois companies are not represented on that list of most number of ACI employees. Companies like Amazon, which recruits more college students than anyone else, isn't represented. Lockheed Martin, Ernst & Young, Enterprise, Deloitte, these are all companies that have significant presences here in Chicago and Illinois, but don't represent the largest recruiters or hires of ACI graduates. We think there's a massive opportunity there. One of the things that's also interesting is that companies should be more actively recruiting at the ACI schools. In fact, I don't know if you've seen this, NACE released a survey earlier this month identifying the factors that were most important to campus recruiters. So this is on the company side. Things like early identification of talent, things like driving diversity and inclusion, building branding on campus, especially for those brands that are not Google or Microsoft, those other brands, the ADMs, the companies that college students may not have heard of. So there really is a great opportunity to help our ACI students get jobs, and also help the companies here in our state sort of access that talent pool. And with that, the Associated Colleges of Illinois is really driving its micro-internship program, providing opportunities for students at the ACI member institutions to work on short-term paid professional assignments year-round. These don't replace full-time jobs. They don't replace existing internship or co-op programs. These don't replace anything that is already in place at the schools, but is rather a complement. So what is a micro-internship? As I alluded to, these are short-term paid professional assignments that are similar to what a new hire or an intern would be doing for a company. These are not sort of menial tasks like fetch me coffee, make copies, wash my car. These are real professional assignments that are applicable across any department, any industry, any size organization. We get asked a lot about what is the scope of these projects. They tend to require anywhere from 5 to 40 hours. They tend to be executed remotely, so students can work on them nights, weekends, even if they have full class loads or part-time jobs. And they tend to pay anywhere from a few $100s to just under $1,000. These are short-term projects. They provide the students an opportunity to really get in the door, demonstrate their skills, and explore career paths prior to graduation. As I mentioned, they're applicable really across any area. Companies like Deloitte, NurseDash, BCBS have posted projects on the site, and they're projects across departments. So for instance, in marketing, we've seen projects like market research. We want you to conduct market research on a given space, content creation, competitive analysis. In sales, we've seen projects like lead generation, competitive research, data cleansing, projects in analytics, where college students are being asked to analyze massive data sets, accounting, finance, HR, you name it. We've seen these projects. And from a company's perspective, it allows them to get immediate support on these projects that are professional, but they may not be the best use of time for someone with 5 or 10 years of professional experience. For a college student, it's a great opportunity. For companies also, it helps them really build those relationships with college students early on. Back to my earlier comment, that's one of the things we continue to hear from companies. They want to identify high potential talent early in the college experience and start to build those relationships over time so they can figure out who is the right fit, irrespective of academic pedigree or background. One of the other things it does is it helps companies sort of drive diversity and inclusion, while at the same time ensuring that college students have equitable access to high-wage professional jobs. In fact, the Chronicle of Higher Education did a whole article on this last week or the week before. If you'd like a copy, happy to share it. Again, for companies, what's nice is when they're providing micro-internship opportunities to your students, it's not through the diversity and inclusion or charitable giving or sponsorship departments. It's being done because they see the real value to the companies beyond those aspects, whether it's around getting work done, building the talent pipeline, exploring new schools. I mean, one of the things we hear all the time from Chicago-based companies and companies across the state and across the country is they can't find great talent. Well, maybe they're not recruiting at the 27 schools that are members of ACI. Even though they have a large number of employees from those schools, they're not proactively recruiting there. This allows them to identify that talent pool. So how does this work for your students? Well, it's really simple. They have the opportunity to create a profile, see the opportunities that are available, they execute the project, and then if it turns into a full-time role, traditional internship, or anything else, there's no costs. And I'll dig into these more in a minute. So again, for students, we ask them to fill out a profile. It takes about 5 minutes. They can include their LinkedIn, they can include their resume, but we still ask them to type in the basic information about themselves. Why that's important is when they're filling out things like their experience or their education, it gives them an opportunity to make sure that they're conveying who they really are. So for instance, if they're filling out their profile and it's riddled with typos or grammatical errors, that sends a signal. And by the way, those kinds of errors aren't limited based upon academic pedigree. We've seen students from Ivy League schools that fill out the profiles, and gosh, it's almost shocking to see what they include. This levels the playing field. because companies can see, again, that grit, that motivation, that attention to detail that's vital. Once they fill out their profile, they see the projects that are available. We are not making matches. We're not a staffing firm. We're not telling students what they have to work on. We're not allowing companies to mine the data and start to guess which students. The students have complete control. They can quickly screen through the projects that are available, and they can see what's interesting. And what's nice is we don't allow them to filter by department. We don't allow them to filter by industry, because we want them to explore. We want the college student who's graduating with a degree in philosophy to look at roles in marketing or strategy or finance or sales, or the student who thinks he or she only wants to work at one of the hot tech companies to recognize that some of the financial services companies or consumer packaged good companies have really interesting technology related roles. This really encourages that kind of exploration. So students see the details of the projects. They'll see when it starts, when it's due, about how long it's expected to take, and how much they'll be paid. It's up to them to decide if they're interested. They might look at a project and say, do you know what, not for me. I don't have the right skills. I don't have the time. It's just not interesting. Or they might look at a project and say, gosh, I never thought about the healthcare industry, but this looks sort of intriguing. Let me apply. Applying for a project takes about 2 minutes. Companies typically ask a short question or two, such as, why do you think you would be a good fit for this position? Again, it's a great way for the students to stand out. And what's nice is that it truly levels the playing field. We've actually interviewed the companies that have posted projects and asked how they made decisions. The answers to the short questions are the #1 way. It really provides the students an opportunity to convey who they are. What does the client see? Well, once the students apply, the clients will only see the information for those students who applied. Again, to my earlier comment, they're not allowed to mine the data. The students have proactively opted in and said, yes, I am interested in applying to this. And again, what's nice to my earlier comment is the students can convey who they are through things like a personal statement and then answers to their short questions, which conveys why they are the right person to work on this assignment. And what's nice is the answers matter. We have literally seen students answer questions in this way. I would use Google. My resume has no typos. I wish I was kidding, but this truly levels the playing field. Once one of your students is selected for a project, we provide supports behind the scene. We're giving them kickoff information. We're giving them best practices. We're giving them suggestions as to how to get the most out of the assignment. The other thing we're doing behind the scenes is ensuring that there's no hiccups. So for the duration of the project, the student is either an employee or a contractor of Parker Dewey, not the end client. And that's important because that ensures that the student is paid when the project is complete. He or she never has to go play collections agent. It also ensures that they receive the accounting documentation when the project's complete. And if there's any hiccups along the way, we're there to take care of it. In addition, when the students are working on the projects, they have some great opportunities to really engage with the universities. They're able to see how classroom lessons apply to the projects they're working on. There's obvious places like marketing where they might be learning about how to conduct a market size analysis in the classroom, and they get to apply it again in the real world for a company like Microsoft. But what's sort of interesting is for those students with more traditional liberal arts backgrounds, they're also seeing how those classroom lessons align. So for the philosophy student working on that same market research project, they get to see how the research skills, the communication, the problem solving, their ability to craft an argument apply to a job when they graduate. And not only do they understand how it applies, but they have real examples that they can demonstrate to companies through the recruiting and hiring process. Micro-internships also provide a great opportunity for the students to interact with faculty or alumni. So students will oftentimes go to office hours of faculty members and ask for insights and feedbacks and suggestions. Same things with the alums. They're able to reach out to an alum in a given industry or with a given background, and instead of asking the typical, tell me about a typical day or are you hiring questions, They're able to engage the alum to get thoughtful feedback. Hey, Jeffrey, I know you've spent time in the education space. I'm doing a project for Associated Colleges of Illinois where they're asking to understand trends in liberal arts education. Can I pick your brain? Think about those real, authentic conversations. Think about how much that supports the other efforts of your colleges. We've also developed a series of micro lessons that support the students as they're working on projects tied to some of the most popular micro-internships. And then obviously they're conducting independent research. When the projects are done, the students are receiving feedback from the companies. Now, what's most important about this is we don't publish it. There is no public rating of a student. It's not Uber where students have 1 to 5 stars and everyone else can see them. We want these to be learning opportunities that are lower risk for students. So when the students are done, they're evaluated by the companies on sort of the 6 categories that companies said were most important: overall satisfaction, timeliness, communication, quality, presentation, and skill level. And if you'll notice, the evaluation is not done as 1 to 5 stars, but done on a scale relative to what a company or hiring manager would expect for an intern or new hire. What that's done is it's created more nuance in the ratings. And while we'd like to see every student get all executed like an industry veteran across the scale like this example, the reality is we see a lot more nuance. We'll see students who get as expected from an intern on communication, but industry veteran for quality accuracy. That feedback is incredibly valuable and useful to your students and recent grads, and we're sharing it with them. And by the way, the feedback is both public and confidential. Public, meaning that the student can share it on his or her LinkedIn and other places, but also confidential. And what we found is the confidential feedback tends to lead to more, call it mentor-esque comments from the company. So for instance, hey, Jeff, you did a great job on this project. It was a pleasure working with you in the public. But in the confidential, hey, Jeff, next time you work on something like this, you might want to think about these 2 or 3 other things. Again, it's real mentoring, real coaching. And as a side, while we don't share it with other employers or other companies, we do share it with our university partners. So we can let you know how your students are performing, both so you can counsel and mentor the students one-on-one, but you can also understand if there's opportunities at a more macro level. So are your students sort of having a hiccup around communication? That might be something worth knowing as you think about programming. Or are your philosophy students doing really, really well on marketing analytics projects? That might be good to know to engage companies that aren't yet recruiting on your campus. And again, what's nice is the impact is real. We're seeing students getting full-time jobs from these projects. We're seeing students able to demonstrate their skills. We're seeing companies actually creating new positions for students, which is pretty incredible. And to be clear, I mean, Jonathan down at the bottom is actually a great example. It's not that we expect a student to be one and done with a micro-internship. Where we're seeing students get the most out of it is when they work on 2, 3, 5, 10 of these throughout their academic career. And they're using it to really figure out the right pathway. And again, Jonathan was exactly that. He thought he wanted to work at a big company. He worked on some projects for big companies and realized it wasn't as good of a fit. But then one of the big companies was healthcare, and he was sort of intrigued. And then he went and worked on the project for a smaller healthcare company and realized he wanted something more entrepreneurial. And ultimately, he converted that into a full-time role at Zermed. After the projects, again, what's great for the students is they have an opportunity to really outline their accomplishments. What did they accomplish? What did they do? They're updating their resume and LinkedIn with real examples of their accomplishments. That both conveys their skills, but also conveys when they're talking with employers why they're the right person for a role. We also suggest that the students consider their learnings. Back to my example with Jonathan earlier, it provides a great way to start to figure out what it is I like, certain company, industry roles, etc. So how does it work for the colleges and universities? Well, the answer is it's 100% up to them. We have great relationships with colleges, universities, foundations who use it all in different ways. So Dell Scholars is actually using this across its entire network of the Dell Scholars across colleges all over the country, providing opportunities for the first generation students to get experience. The same thing with the United Negro College Fund and its Career Pathways Initiative. Bentley University specifically tying it to alumni engagement. University of Michigan is using it for its student athletes. Again, it's 100% up to the company. And what's nice is with each college, there's opportunities to use, whether it's around student success. How do we make sure our students have these opportunities? They can use it for employer outreach, to bring new employers onto campus, or to deepen the engagement with existing employers, to build relationships with alums, and continue to support those efforts. So as opposed to reaching out to an alum with the standard, hey, do you want to donate or come to campus? It's another type of ask. And then also to get faculty insights, and I'll talk more about all of this. Now, to be clear, all of your students are already welcome on Parker Dewey, and they're already invited to participate in these micro-internships, and we have a number of them already, which is wonderful. We wanted this to be an open platform that's accessible and available for every college student and recent graduate. Now, when we are partnering with the colleges, it provides additional opportunity. So again, for the colleges that want to do more with this effort, with the micro-internship program, obviously they have opportunities to continue to drive student awareness. Make sure students know that they have the opportunity to participate, as I said, as they do now. We, to my earlier comment, can share the data with the universities, letting you know which students are engaged, how they're performing on projects, which companies are working with your students. You may not realize a company like Google has engaged 5 or 10 or 20 of your students and had tremendous success. And Google may not be recruiting on your campus right now. We're able to share all of those insights with you. Where we're also seeing some pretty creative things is on employer outreach. So we're seeing more and more colleges, to my earlier point, using this to introduce their programs to those employers who aren't yet recruiting on their campus. It becomes another arrow in their proverbial quiver. It also allows them to deepen the relationships, to demonstrate the innovation, to demonstrate opportunities to build relationships with the students year-round, which, back to my earlier comment, is something employers really value. And then, as I alluded to before, alumni engagement. We've seen some great usage where, again, the universities are using this to drive alumni engagement. And they're doing it in a few ways. In some cases, they're reaching out to alums saying, hey, this is a great way to give back. You graduate from Dominican University, you know how wonderful our students are. You should post some micro-internships and pick Dominican students. It's a great way to support us. Or if a student's working on a micro-internship for someone else, are you willing to counsel or mentor them along the way? What's great is it's a different kind of ask. It provides something where an alum sees the value that they're getting from a project, but also finds it as a way to give back. And again, also happy to do things to help support that. So we can mock up a landing page for you. Here's an example of one for Dominican University. Obviously, it can include all of your branding, your messaging, anything you want. And to be clear, there's no cost to the universities or the students or anyone else associated with it. We're happy to do this back to our mission of trying to solve the challenges associated with college to career. So happy to work with you on that. The other thing we're seeing is, again, every school, back to my earlier comment, is different. Some schools are using this, back to my comment, University of Chicago is using it for alumni engagement. Purdue University has been doing a ton in the Liberal Arts Career Center. In fact, there was a whole article on this effort in the Inside Higher Education report a few months ago. Bentley University, a small school up in New England, actually got a whole write-up on its use of micro-internships within the Career Center. So again, it's 100% up to you how you want to use it. In fact, Purdue University has a program launching next month tied to Love Liberal Arts Week, where they've proactively gone out to companies and asked them to post micro-internships as a way to support their liberal arts students. And they're using this to provide the companies with an opportunity to create branding on campus, but also to provide opportunities for the liberal arts students. And with companies like Salesforce.com, for instance, they're recruiting at Purdue, but they're only recruiting in the business program or the engineering program right now. Purdue's using this to say, hey, Salesforce, like in our liberal arts school, we have a whole bunch of students who know how to code, who have been programming since birth. Here's a way to get to see those students who you might otherwise be missing. And by the way, because they have strong liberal arts backgrounds, they have the communication skills, the problem solving, the adaptability that you're looking for. And it provides, again, another way for Purdue to use it. And again, all of these cases, it's 100% driven by the universities. We've also provided a series of resources that are available to the college students to access along the way, but also for the universities. We have a series of toolkits that you can use, whether it's around alumni engagement, student engagement, employer outreach. We have a ton of content that's been developed over the past 4 years. Again, you can use any of it, you can ignore it. We want this to be as helpful as possible for you as a university. So I guess the question is, what now? Well, as I said before, right now, students are completely able to access the platform and work on micro-internships. To the extent you want to do more, variety of opportunities. You can include links on your career services page, whether it's for students who are trying to seek experiences, or as another resource for companies that are not yet hiring on campus. You can include it in your current outreach. Some schools have included it in their signature line. Some schools have done separate emails to employers introducing this new initiative, or including it as a separate email, or as part of another email about career fairs or other employer outreach. Same thing with alums. They've invested in alumni engagement platforms, and now they're using this concept as a way to actually get the employers or the alumni on these platforms. The other thing we've seen in a very effective way is the universities are using this with their boards, whether it's the Dean's Advisory Council, Board of Trustees, or otherwise. They're saying it's great that you want to come to the board meetings and support your alma mater. Here's another way to give back. Here's another way to support us. You know how wonderful our students are. Give them these opportunities. And again, none of these ideas came from us. Everything I mentioned came from the schools. These were best practices. And we're happy to work with any of you or any of your colleagues or teams to help craft any programs. The Purdue one being a great example. That was an initiative they had that we worked with them to sort of sit behind the scenes. And we're happy to work with you and do whatever we can. So with that, I'm happy to open it up to questions. There's a Q&A box on your screen if you have any questions. I don't see any yet. It looks like there's no questions. Mick, did you have any questions?
Well, I just thank you, Jeffrey, for a great presentation. I just wanted to say that some of the data you used in the beginning, showing the number of our graduates working in various large companies in Illinois, was compiled through Parker Dewey through internships, micro-internships, and we're continuing to use those students for ongoing projects like that. So it's been a great opportunity for us, but so no, I just want to thank you. I'd be curious, Jeffrey, tell us why a school would get involved and what would be the benefit for them to get more of their students. Well, I know you've shared this already, but how would a school get involved as a school rather than just as an individual?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's a great question, and I think with regard to the schools, and again, it depends. We never want to tell a school what it must do. Yeah, but Purdue's a great example. So Purdue, we initially established a relationship, actually it's through the dean at the College of Liberal Arts, but very quickly at the Career Services Department, where they realized this was an opportunity for their students, their liberal arts students, to get more of these professional experiences for all the reasons I said. So we went down and spent time with our College of Liberal Arts and the Career Services team and created the landing page for them and gave them a whole bunch of content. And while we were down there, folks from the alumni engagement team came by and they started asking questions. They said, is it okay with you if we use this to drive alumni engagement? Is it okay with you if we use this for outreach? Is it okay with you? And our answer was yes. That's wonderful. That's a great outcome. Same thing with the academic departments. It wasn't my idea to say, hey, go to a professor's office hours. We were getting that call from professors wanting to use it. So every school is different. And again, we're happy to engage as much or as little as the university wants. University of Chicago, has a very interesting program going on right now, where when we launched the company, University of Chicago wasn't really sort of top of mind. They have essentially 100% placement of their students. But they said, we have a challenge. Our students want more opportunities with schools on the coasts that aren't thinking about recruiting at University of Chicago. So University of Chicago has created an entire effort where they're reaching out to targeted companies, say, hey, you're not yet recruiting at U of C. You should get to know our students through these micro-internships. Here's a low-risk way for you to dip your toe in the water. There's a school up in Boston or in Maine called Colby College, which has a similar effort tied to alumni engagement, where they're saying, so every school is different, and we're happy to work with any of the universities sort of here that want to do as much or as little. I saw a couple. So, Mick, did that answer your question?
It did, Jeffrey. And one more quick question, and then I know you had some questions. Curious in hearing from some of the reactions of some of the career service folks who are online. Even if they don't have questions, we'd love to hear how they react to this type of program and how it could benefit them.
Great. Well, Jim, we'll do it. Let me answer these two questions, and I'll just unmute everything, and we can have that. So the first question came in: is there a way for schools to know who's on the platform offering opportunities who are a part of their alma mater? Yes. And that's important. So when we launched Parker Dewey, we did not want to create another walled community like the traditional on-campus recruiting platforms. That's sort of antithesis to our mission. We wanted to open it up. So yes, the student or the alumni from Dominican may have a predisposition to pick a Dominican student, but they're still going to see all of the career launchers who applied. And that's important. The same way, the student from Dominican will see those projects from Dominican alums, but they'll still see everything else. And again, that was very, very important to us. We're also able to provide the schools with reporting to let them know which companies have selected the students, whether they're tied to the university or not. We can also let you know if alums from your schools are posting projects. So if Jeff, the graduate of Indiana University, posts a project, whether or not there's a formal relationship with IU, we're still able to let Indiana know that, hey, Jeff posted this project. You may want to reach out to Jeff to drive the engagement. Brian, I think that answered your question. If not, let me know, I guess, by typing a second question. We also got a question: when consulting with the schools, do you discuss possible strategies with the institutions, or do you prefer schools to already know how they want to use this? Either or both. So in the University Toolkit, we've developed a whole bunch of suggestions and strategies. We are happy to share the best practices. We are happy to spend as much time with you or your colleagues walking through strategies. I think the only thing we need to know is what you're trying to accomplish with it. What is the point of pain? Is it about getting more employers on campus? Is it deepening alumni engagement? Is it about helping career explore? Whatever it is, we're happy to work with you to develop something that best achieves your goals. And again, there's no costs or fees associated with any of this. As a mission-driven organization, we're just focused on solving that point of pain. And then in addition, in the University Toolkit are a whole bunch of other suggestions. The other thing we do is we send out a monthly newsletter. Actually, there's two. One called Higher Learnings, which are just some of our thoughts about the space and best practices and other things we're seeing. But we also have a university-specific newsletter that goes out every month with some suggestions. They may include social media posts relative to a current season, or, hey, here's an email template you might want to use right now based upon a certain news story. So these are all, again, best practices that we're happy to share. We got I got a follow-up from Brian. Good. I did answer the question. We got a question. In the example you gave with Purdue, are the opportunities offered by Pepsi only open to Purdue students? No, they're not. back to my earlier comment, we do not want walled communities. Now, granted, Pepsi may have a predisposition to pick or produce students, but they are still going to see everyone. The reality of what we're seeing is we're seeing the right behaviors by the companies, which is pretty cool, where the individual from Pepsi might be in a specific example where they have actually 5 micro-internships, or they're hiring 5 micro-interns for a specific project. They might pick 1 or 2 from Purdue. But the team at Pepsi may also say, oh, wow, we've never recruited at North Park before, and Jeff at North Park looks sort of interesting. Let's give him a shot. Let's give him and we're seeing all of those great behaviors, which is really, really nice to see. We got another question. If a school has a particular business in mind for collaboration, is it better for the school to begin the process, or do you prefer that we refer them to Parker Dewey first? Again, the question is either or. We have in the University Toolkit a whole bunch of best practices that you can use to send or communicate to the business, to let them know it's out there. The other thing we've done on these landing pages is we can convey whatever message you want about how to best use it. And then we're certainly happy to work with you. Again, in the example of Purdue, what they're doing right now is they're ramping up this Love Liberal Arts program, is the team in career services and alumni are reaching out to companies and explaining it and sort of sharing it and the links. And then they're just directing directing the company to us to get their custom page set up. We're happy to do that. We're happy to jump on calls. The other thing we're doing with another program right now is they asked us to present at one of the, I don't know if it was the advisory council or the board meeting, but they wanted to introduce this to the members of that committee to bring back to their companies. So again, we're happy to do as much or as little as you would like. I think those were all of the questions. So I am going to unmute everyone. So we're all unmuted. If anyone has other questions or feedback or thoughts, feel free to jump in. Anything? I won't do my Ben Stein impression. Mick, anything else on your mind?
No, again, we would just be interested to hear the reactions of the career service folks who are on the line, if they'd be open to sharing their thoughts of this opportunity for them. And tell them we know who they are and where they live, so if they don't respond, we'll take action. No, we'd love to hear your feedback on that, folks.
If anyone's trying to answer and can and wants to type it in the thing, good luck. Well, thank you for the great questions and for joining us here. If you have any other questions, again, my direct email is on here, Jeffrey@Parker Dewey. My colleague, Michelle, who is unfortunately unable to join us today, she does the work with the universities. She leads our entire marketing team here at Parker Dewey and is happy to also work with any of you or your colleagues to prepare whatever materials you need or share best practices. Again, what's been neat is over the past 4 years, we've just been able to, through partnerships and relationships with the universities, really understand what works and what doesn't. And we have a ton of resources to make it really, really easy for the schools to kick it off, whether it's with the students, the employers, the alumni, or any of the other interested parties.
Jeffrey, thank you so much, and thanks everyone for attending, and we look forward to having you and your schools participate more, and we hope to grow it. And I should mention, too, we're doing a similar webinar Thursday for companies around the state to encourage more companies to participate as well.
Thank you, everyone. Stay warm out there. Stay safe. And again, if you have questions, feel free to email me. We'll do whatever we can. And again, thank you to Mick and the entire ACI team for the opportunity. It's been just such a pleasure working with the team there, and we love seeing this kind of innovation, especially given some of the challenges our state's facing, and so much of the communication around solving this college to career transition, both by the current governor and the rest of the administration. So, Mick, thank you and your team for the opportunity.
Thanks, Jeff. Good night.
Take care.